At 48, the man everyone thought was cornered walked into the courtroom with a calm smile and walked out leaving jaws on the floor. When Kirk Frost finally faced off against Jasmine Washington, no one expected what happened next. Fans were shocked, emotions ran high, and by the time the final words echoed through the courtroom, the narrative flipped in a way no one saw coming. For months, whispers followed Kirk like a storm cloud. Accusations flew, alliances shifted, and the court of public opinion had already made up its mind. Jasmine, fiery and unfiltered, arrived ready for battle, her supporters convinced this was the moment she would finally expose everything. Cameras flashed, friends and family packed the room. Even critics leaned in, waiting for the truth to explode. But then, Kirk spoke. What started as a tense standoff quickly spiraled into a dramatic unraveling of secrets, timelines, and receipts that left the room silent. Gasps rippled through the gallery as unexpected evidence surfaced. Jasmine's confidence faltered, her legal team exchanged nervous glances. And just like that, the power shifted. Fans watching from home couldn't believe their eyes. Social media lit up as emotions boiled over, some cheering, others furious, all glued to the chaos. Was this a calculated move years in the making? Or a last-minute twist that changed everything? As the judge leaned forward and the final revelation landed, one thing became clear: this wasn't just a court case. It was a full-blown reality TV showdown, and the family was left divided. What truth was finally revealed, and who really walked away crushed? The courtroom felt smaller than it should have, like the walls were leaning in to listen. Kirk Frost sat straight-backed at the defense table, hands folded, face unreadable. Across from him, Jasmine Washington kept shifting in her chair, her jaw tight, eyes darting between Kirk and the judge. Fans packed the benches behind them, whispering under their breath, phones buzzing with messages that would later explode online. Everyone knew this moment had been years in the making, and nobody wanted to blink. Outside the courthouse, cameras were already rolling, reporters hyping the moment like a season finale. Inside, emotions ran high. Jasmine had come in confident, shoulders squared, dressed like a woman ready to win. She believed this was the day she would finally say her truth without Kirk interrupting her, without lawyers shutting her down, without social media twisting her words. For months she had claimed Kirk manipulated the narrative, controlled the money, and hid behind his marriage and public image. Today, she thought, was Judgment Day. When proceedings began, Jasmine's attorney wasted no time. He painted a picture of betrayal, of promises whispered in private and denied in public. He spoke about late-night calls, emotional support, and a child caught in the middle of a grown-up mess. As Jasmine listened, her eyes filled with tears, and a few people in the gallery nodded along. Fans were shocked by how raw it sounded. Some even mouthed, "Wow," as the attorney suggested Kirk had built his success on lies. Then Jasmine took the stand. Her voice trembled at first, but soon it hardened. She talked about feeling chosen, then discarded. She said Kirk made her feel seen, then erased. She claimed he promised stability, respect, and protection, only to turn cold when things became public. Emotions ran high as she described nights crying alone, scrolling through social media, watching Kirk smile beside his wife like nothing had ever happened. The family was left divided, with murmurs rippling through the room. Kirk never reacted. No sighs, no head shakes, just silence. When it was time for cross-examination, everything shifted. Kirk's lawyer stood slowly, adjusting his jacket, his voice calm but sharp. He asked Jasmine about dates. Specific dates, times, messages. At first, she answered quickly, confidently. But then the pauses grew longer. The lawyer presented printed screenshots, enlarging them on a screen for everyone to see. Timestamps didn't match her story. Locations contradicted earlier claims. Fans leaned forward, sensing a turn. Jasmine's face flushed. She tried to explain, saying stress had blurred her memory. The lawyer nodded politely, then asked about financial support. Jasmine claimed Kirk cut her off without warning. Again, more documents appeared. Bank transfers, consistent payments, notes attached. The room went quiet. Even Jasmine's supporters looked confused. Then came the moment nobody expected. Kirk was called to the stand. As he walked up, whispers erupted. Some expected anger, others expected arrogance. Instead, Kirk spoke softly. He admitted to mistakes, to poor decisions, to hurting people. But he denied manipulation. He denied abandonment. He said he had taken responsibility in ways the public never saw because he chose privacy over performance. Fans were shocked by the calmness, by how measured every word sounded. He looked directly at Jasmine for the first time. Not with rage, but disappointment. He said he never promised what she claimed, and that their conversations had been taken out of context. Then his lawyer asked the judge for permission to submit new evidence. Jasmine stiffened. The screen lit up again. Audio recordings played. Kirk's voice, steady, discussing boundaries. Messages from Jasmine followed, some emotional, some aggressive, some contradicting her testimony from earlier that day. Gasps filled the room. Emotions ran high as Jasmine covered her mouth, shaking her head. Her attorney whispered urgently to her, but it was too late. The narrative was cracking. One recording, in particular, froze the room. Jasmine's voice could be heard acknowledging an agreement, clearly stating she understood what Kirk could and could not offer. The date on the recording lined up exactly with the period she claimed he had promised more. Fans were shocked. Phones slipped from hands. Someone in the back whispered, "That changes everything." Jasmine tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand, instructing her to wait. Kirk remained seated, eyes down, almost heavy with the weight of it all. When asked why he hadn't shared this earlier, Kirk said he hoped it would never come to this. He said he wanted peace, not humiliation. But he also said there comes a point where truth has to be louder than noise. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Supporters on both sides exchanged looks, unsure who to stand behind anymore. Jasmine's confidence had visibly shaken, her earlier fire replaced with panic. The family was left divided not just in blood but in belief. Fans watching from home flooded social media with reactions, some apologizing to Kirk, others accusing him of planning this all along. As the judge called for a short recess, Jasmine sat frozen, staring at the table. Kirk leaned back slightly, exhaling for what felt like the first time all day. Outside, reporters scrambled, already rewriting headlines. Nobody knew what would happen next, but one thing was clear. This case was no longer what it seemed, and the truth, whatever it fully was, had only just begun to surface. The recess felt endless. When the judge returned, the air in the courtroom had changed. Jasmine no longer sat tall. Her shoulders were slumped, fingers tapping nervously against the table. Kirk, on the other hand, looked steadier, as if a weight had been lifted the moment the recordings played. Emotions ran high, but now they were mixed with uncertainty. Fans were shocked not just by what they heard, but by how quickly the story they believed began to fall apart. Jasmine's attorney tried to regain control. He argued that recordings could be selective, that context mattered, that emotions at the time influenced tone. He suggested Kirk had curated evidence to protect himself. But the judge wasn't convinced so easily. She asked Jasmine directly if the voice on the recording was hers. Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. Her quiet, "yes," echoed louder than any argument. The courtroom murmured again. The family was left divided right there in real time. Some supporters of Jasmine shook their heads in disbelief, while others stared at the floor, embarrassed by how confidently they had defended her online. Kirk's supporters, who had been quiet earlier, now sat back with folded arms, eyes fixed on Jasmine, waiting for her next move. Then Jasmine spoke again, this time without her lawyer guiding her. Her voice cracked as she said she felt pressured, confused, and emotionally overwhelmed during that period of her life. She claimed fear made her agree to things she didn't fully accept. Emotions ran high as tears streamed down her face. A few people in the gallery sniffled, reminded that behind the drama were real feelings. But the judge pressed further. She asked why Jasmine had publicly stated things that directly contradicted her private words. Jasmine struggled to answer. She talked about feeling ignored, about wanting to be heard, about watching Kirk move on while she stayed stuck in the same pain. Fans were shocked by how human the moment felt, yet also confused by the inconsistencies. Kirk was asked to respond. He stood again, slower this time. He acknowledged Jasmine's pain, saying he never wanted to dismiss her feelings. But he also said pain didn't justify rewriting history. His voice remained calm, almost too calm, which only made the contrast sharper. He said he had tried to resolve things privately, offering support while setting boundaries. When those boundaries were crossed publicly, he felt forced to defend himself. Then came another twist. Kirk's lawyer revealed testimony from a mutual acquaintance, someone both Kirk and Jasmine trusted during that time. The witness took the stand and described conversations with Jasmine where she admitted feeling angry about Kirk's refusal to leave his marriage, not about broken promises. Fans were shocked all over again. The narrative shifted once more, and this time it cut deep. Jasmine shook her head repeatedly, whispering that it wasn't true. But the witness continued, explaining that Jasmine had talked about using the court case to finally make him listen. The room went silent. Emotions ran high as the words sank in. Even Jasmine's attorney looked stunned. The judge called for order, her tone firm. She reminded everyone that this wasn't about revenge or public sympathy, but about facts. She reviewed the evidence aloud, point by point, exposing contradictions in Jasmine's claims. With every sentence, Jasmine seemed to shrink further into herself. Outside the courthouse, fans were already reacting in real time. Live streams exploded with comments accusing Jasmine of manipulation, while others defended her as a woman pushed too far. The family was left divided not just in the courtroom but across the internet. Friendships cracked. Alliances shifted. Nobody wanted to admit they might have been wrong. Back inside, Jasmine was given one last chance to clarify her statements. She tried to regain composure, wiping her face, lifting her chin. She admitted she exaggerated certain things, but insisted her pain was real. She accused Kirk of hiding behind legal language and money to avoid accountability. Her voice rose, frustration spilling out. Emotions ran high once again, and the judge had to interrupt, reminding her to keep calm. Kirk didn't interrupt, he just listened. When asked if he had anything else to add, he paused. Then he said something that changed the tone entirely. He said this case had never been about winning for him. It was about stopping the cycle before it damaged more lives, especially children watching adults turn private hurt into public warfare. Fans were shocked by the maturity in his words, even critics admitted it sounded sincere. The judge announced she would need time to review everything before making a final ruling. Another delay, another wave of tension. Jasmine looked devastated, as if she already sensed where things were heading. Kirk nodded respectfully, returning to his seat. As the court adjourned for the day, Jasmine rushed out, avoiding cameras, while Kirk exited through a side door, silent. Outside, reporters shouted questions, speculating wildly. Nobody had a clear answer yet, but the balance of power had undeniably shifted. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a public reckoning. And as night fell, both sides knew the final chapter was approaching, with consequences far bigger than either of them had imagined. By the time the court reconvened the next morning, the tension was unbearable. Jasmine arrived late, sunglasses hiding her eyes, her energy completely different from day one. Kirk was already seated, speaking quietly with his legal team, his posture relaxed but alert. Fans filled the courtroom again, some returning just to witness the final collapse or comeback. Emotions ran high before a single word was spoken. The judge wasted no time. She began by addressing the inconsistencies laid out the previous day. She spoke slowly, deliberately, as if every sentence was peeling back another layer of the story. Jasmine listened, frozen. Kirk stared straight ahead. The judge referenced the recordings, the financial records, the witness testimony, and the timeline discrepancies. Fans were shocked by how methodical it all sounded, like the chaos had finally been pinned down and dissected. Then came the ruling on credibility. The judge stated plainly that Jasmine's testimony contained multiple contradictions that weakened her claims. The courtroom reacted instantly. Gasps, whispers, a sharp intake of breath from Jasmine herself. The family was left divided once again, but this time the split felt final. Kirk closed his eyes briefly, not in celebration, but relief. Jasmine's attorney tried one last angle. He argued emotional distress, manipulation through power imbalance, and public pressure. He said Jasmine had been painted unfairly as a villain when she was clearly hurting. Emotions ran high as Jasmine broke down completely, sobbing openly. For a moment, even Kirk looked affected, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. But then the judge said something that changed everything. She acknowledged Jasmine's pain, but stated that pain alone could not override documented facts. She emphasized that the court was not a stage for rewriting personal regrets as legal wrongdoing. Fans were shocked by the bluntness. Jasmine's sobs quieted into stunned silence. The judge then turned directly to Kirk. She stated that while his personal choices were questionable, the evidence supported his claims of financial responsibility and clear boundaries. She said there was no proof of abandonment or deception as alleged. With that, the balance tipped fully. The courtroom felt like it exhaled all at once. Jasmine's face went pale, but the final blow hadn't landed yet. The judge addressed a countersuit Kirk had filed quietly, one that many fans didn't even know existed. It involved defamation and reputational damage caused by public statements Jasmine had made online. Screenshots of posts, interviews, and live videos were referenced. Emotions ran high again as the judge stated these statements went beyond personal expression and into demonstrably false claims. Fans were shocked all over again. Jasmine stood up abruptly, shaking her head, saying she never meant to destroy him, only to be heard. The judge instructed her to sit. Her voice cracked as she whispered apologies that came far too late. The ruling was delivered. The court found in favor of Kirk Frost. Jasmine's claims were dismissed, and damages were awarded to Kirk for reputational harm. The silence that followed was deafening. Jasmine collapsed back into her chair, staring into nothing. Her attorney leaned in, whispering rapidly, but she didn't respond. The family was left divided in the most brutal way possible, with some supporters quietly slipping out, unable to watch anymore. Kirk didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. When asked if he wished to speak, he stood and said only that he hoped this would be the end, not just legally, but emotionally. He said everyone involved deserved peace, including Jasmine. Fans were shocked by the restraint. Outside the courtroom, chaos erupted. Reporters swarmed Jasmine as she exited, shouting questions about lies, manipulation, and regret. She broke down again, yelling that nobody understood her side, that she felt used and discarded by everyone, including the public. Emotions ran high as she accused fans of turning on her overnight. Meanwhile, Kirk stepped outside to a different reaction. Supporters cheered softly, some calling his name, others apologizing for doubting him. Cameras captured his calm expression as he said nothing, just getting into his car and leaving. Social media exploded within minutes. Clips from the courtroom went viral. Fans were shocked at how fast public opinion flipped. Hashtags trended. Think pieces appeared accusing Jasmine of weaponizing emotion, while others argued Kirk had simply outplayed her with better resources. The family was left divided across platforms, comment sections turning into battlegrounds. Friends of Jasmine began speaking out, some defending her mental state, others distancing themselves entirely. One former close friend posted that Jasmine had ignored advice and pushed too far. Another claimed Kirk had been calculating from the beginning. Emotions ran high as loyalty crumbled publicly. Then Jasmine posted a video. Eyes red, voice shaking, she addressed fans directly. She admitted she lost the case. She admitted she said things out of anger. But she insisted her feelings were real. She accused Kirk of winning in court but losing morally. Fans were shocked by the tone, unsure whether to sympathize or roll their eyes. Comments flooded in, brutal and unforgiving. Kirk, meanwhile, stayed silent. Days passed. The silence spoke louder than words. Industry insiders began leaking stories about meetings Kirk had skipped, deals he had postponed, saying he wanted to stay away from drama. That only fueled speculation. Emotions ran high as people debated whether Kirk was being mature or simply avoiding backlash. Then came the final twist. A previously unreleased message thread surfaced, leaked by someone anonymous. It showed Jasmine acknowledging that once the case was over, she hoped to move on and heal. Fans were shocked by how different that tone was from her public rage. The family was left divided once more, with some calling the leak cruel, others saying it proved Kirk's point all along. Jasmine disappeared from social media shortly after. Kirk eventually released a short statement, saying he wished Jasmine well and hoped everyone learned something from the situation. No accusations, no victory lap, just closure. But the damage was done. Reputations had been altered, trust had been broken, and fans were left questioning everything they thought they knew. This wasn't just about a courtroom win. It was about how quickly stories turn into weapons, how emotions can become evidence, and how truth, once exposed, can crush just as hard as lies. And even though the gavel had fallen, the fallout was far from over. Weeks after the ruling, the aftermath continued to spread like wildfire. Jasmine remained offline, but her absence only fueled speculation. Blogs claimed she was preparing a tell-all. Others said she was struggling privately, surrounded by only a few people she could still trust. Fans were shocked by how fast sympathy turned into suspicion, and how silence became its own kind of statement. Emotions ran high across every corner of social media. Kirk tried to return to normal life, but normal no longer existed. Every appearance drew questions. Every photo sparked debate. Some praised him for staying quiet, calling it class. Others accused him of hiding behind the win. The family was left divided even within his own circle. Some friends told him he should finally speak his full truth. Others warned that reopening the story would only reignite the fire. Then Jasmine broke her silence. Late one night, without warning, she went live. The screen flickered, her face appearing tired, raw, unfiltered. No makeup, no script. She stared into the camera for several seconds before speaking. She said she had been quiet because she was ashamed, angry, and exhausted. She admitted the court ruling hurt more than she expected, not just because she lost, but because she felt exposed. Fans were shocked by the vulnerability, and emotions ran high instantly as thousands joined the stream. She claimed she never planned for things to go this far. She said she felt ignored for years, and when she finally spoke loudly, it came out wrong. She accused people of loving her pain when it entertained them, then abandoning her when it became inconvenient. The family was left divided yet again as comments flooded in, some supportive, others ruthless. Then she said Kirk's name. The room seemed to freeze through the screen. She said she still believed Kirk knew how much power he had over the situation. She said he stayed quiet not because he was innocent, but because silence worked in his favor. Emotions ran high as she accused him of letting her take all the blame while he walked away clean. Fans were shocked by how quickly the live turned confrontational. Clips spread instantly. Kirk was asked for comment the next morning. This time, he responded. In a brief interview, he said he didn't want to go back and forth publicly. He said the court had spoken, and dragging things out only hurt everyone involved. But then he added something unexpected. He said Jasmine wasn't evil. He said she was hurt, and hurt people sometimes burn bridges without realizing they're standing on them. The family was left divided by his words, some calling them compassionate, others calling them calculated. But Jasmine wasn't done. Days later, she released a written statement accusing Kirk of emotional manipulation, carefully worded to avoid legal trouble. She said the court ruled on evidence, not experience. Emotions ran high again as fans debated what truth really meant. Blogs dissected every sentence. Supporters of Kirk pointed out how careful her language was now, while critics said she was finally being smart. Then came another twist. A former associate of Kirk stepped forward anonymously, claiming Kirk had confided fears about Jasmine long before the case ever reached court. The associate said Kirk believed things would explode eventually, and he had prepared for it quietly. Fans were shocked by the implication. Emotions ran high as people questioned whether the case was always headed toward this outcome. Kirk denied it, but doubt lingered. Jasmine's supporters rallied again, pushing a narrative that she had been emotionally cornered from the start. Kirk's supporters pushed back harder, citing receipts and rulings. The family was left divided beyond repair, with no middle ground left. Then Jasmine announced something nobody expected. She said she was done talking about Kirk. Instead, she announced a project. A documentary. The internet erupted. Fans were shocked at the announcement, unsure whether it would be a redemption arc or another attack. Emotions ran high as speculation exploded. Insiders claimed cameras had already been rolling. Others said she was just bluffing. Jasmine said it would be her truth, told calmly, without rage. Kirk's legal team reportedly went into immediate review mode. Even people who were tired of the drama leaned back in. Curiosity won. As anticipation grew, so did tension. Jasmine posted cryptic messages about healing, accountability, and survival. Kirk remained silent again. The family was left divided, watching two very different strategies unfold in real time. When a teaser clip dropped, it showed Jasmine sitting alone in a dim room, saying she lost more than a case, she lost her voice. Fans were shocked by how subdued it felt. Emotions ran high as comments filled with cautious optimism. But Kirk's supporters weren't convinced. They pointed out what wasn't said. They questioned timing. They questioned motive. Then Kirk finally spoke again, but not directly. A close friend gave an interview saying Kirk was focused on protecting his family and moving forward. The friend said Kirk accepted that some people would always see him as the villain, no matter what evidence existed. The family was left divided by that statement alone. Jasmine's documentary release date was announced. And suddenly, the story felt far from over. The night before the release, Jasmine posted one final message. She said tomorrow wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her narrative. Fans were shocked by how calm the message sounded. Emotions ran high as people waited, split between skepticism and sympathy. Kirk spent that night offline. When the documentary finally aired, reactions were instant and explosive. Some viewers said it humanized Jasmine. Others said it confirmed everything the court exposed. The family was left divided once and for all, with no version of events able to fully unite public opinion. Jasmine cried on screen. Kirk stayed absent, and fans argued endlessly about truth, power, and accountability. In the end, there was no clear winner. Only consequences. Careers shifted, trust eroded, reputations changed shape. And what began as a private conflict had turned into a public cautionary tale about what happens when emotion meets exposure and silence meets spectacle. Even now, long after the verdict, fans remain shocked by how deeply the story cut, and how no ruling could ever fully settle something that lived as much in feeling as it did in fact. The weeks that followed the documentary release felt heavier than anything before it. Jasmine expected backlash, but not this level of scrutiny. Every sentence she spoke on camera was dissected. Every pause analyzed. Fans were shocked by how quickly empathy turned into interrogation. Emotions ran high as people argued over whether the documentary was healing or calculated, confession or strategy. Jasmine watched the reactions alone. She had imagined closure. Instead, she found herself reliving everything again, only this time through millions of opinions she couldn't control. Some viewers praised her vulnerability, saying they finally saw her as a human being, not a headline. Others accused her of rewriting the same story the court had already rejected. The family was left divided even among people who had once stood firmly on her side. Kirk, meanwhile, stayed silent longer than anyone expected. No statements, no interviews, not even vague posts. That silence became its own headline. Fans were shocked that he didn't respond to the documentary at all. Emotions ran high as speculation filled the gap. Some said he was above it. Others said he was scared of reigniting legal consequences. Behind the scenes, though, things weren't as calm. People close to Kirk said the documentary hit harder than he let on. Not because of accusations, but because of how much of the past was dragged back into the light. They said he worried less about himself and more about how it would affect his family, especially the children who would one day see all of this online. The family was left divided internally, trying to protect privacy in a world that demanded access. Then something unexpected happened. Jasmine received a private message. It wasn't from a fan. It wasn't from a blogger. It was from Kirk. The message was short. No blame, no threats. He said he watched the documentary. He said he understood why she felt unheard. But he also said reopening wounds publicly didn't heal them, it only taught people where to aim next time. Emotions ran high as Jasmine read it over and over, unsure how to feel. She didn't reply right away. Days passed. Fans were shocked when rumors leaked that the two had spoken privately. Blogs speculated about secret meetings, possible reconciliation, even a joint statement. Emotions ran high as people who had built entire identities around choosing sides suddenly felt unsteady. Jasmine finally responded to Kirk's message. She said she never meant to hurt his family. She said she felt trapped between silence and explosion, and she chose wrong. But she also said she couldn't pretend she wasn't hurt just to make others comfortable. The family was left divided even in that exchange, truth sitting awkwardly between accountability and pain. Nothing more was said, but the tension shifted. Jasmine stopped posting cryptic messages. Kirk's friends noticed he seemed lighter, less guarded. Fans were shocked by the sudden quiet after so much noise. Emotions ran high because people didn't know what to do without constant updates. Then another twist surfaced. A major network announced interest in a reunion-style sit-down, offering Jasmine and Kirk a mediated conversation, off-camera at first, possibly on camera later. The internet exploded again. Fans were shocked by the idea. Emotions ran high as debates reignited over whether this would be healing or pure spectacle. Kirk declined. Jasmine hesitated. Her team urged her to do it, saying it could finally balance the narrative. Her instincts told her she was tired of proving anything. The family was left divided between strategy and sanity. She said no. And for the first time, the story didn't escalate. Months passed. The noise slowly faded, replaced by newer scandals, newer drama. Fans moved on, but not completely. Every once in a while, someone would resurface a clip, a quote, a screenshot. Emotions ran high in smaller bursts now, not explosions but embers. Jasmine began focusing on herself. Therapy, distance, rebuilding friendships she had neglected while fighting a war she thought she needed to win. She admitted privately that court wasn't the only place she lost something. She lost herself somewhere along the way. The family was left divided still, but the lines were quieter now. Kirk returned to work fully, though changed. People around him noticed he spoke less, listened more. He avoided interviews that centered on controversy. When asked about Jasmine, he simply said he hoped she was okay. Fans were shocked by how consistently he refused to add fuel. Then came the final unexpected moment. At a public event months later, Jasmine and Kirk crossed paths. No cameras planned it, no announcement teased it, just coincidence. The room noticed instantly. Whispers spread. Emotions ran high as people waited for something dramatic to happen. Instead, Kirk nodded. Jasmine nodded back. Nothing more. And somehow, that moment said more than everything before it. Fans were shocked not by an argument but by the absence of one. The family was left divided still, but the war energy was gone. What remained was something quieter, heavier, more real. There was no winner. No redemption arc clean enough to erase damage. No villain satisfying enough to absorb all the blame. Only two people who made choices, some wrong, some human, under lights that magnified every flaw. In the end, the courtroom ruling stood. The documentary existed. Public opinion stayed split. But life moved forward, indifferent to who felt right. And for the first time since it all began, the story stopped chasing resolution and settled into consequence. Fans are still shocked by how it ended, not with a bang, but with silence. And maybe that silence was the truth neither side could say out loud. Time passed, but the story refused to fully die. Just when people thought everything had settled into quiet consequence, new whispers began to circulate. Not loud at first, subtle, the kind that slips into comment sections late at night and grows legs by morning. Fans were shocked to see old clips resurfacing again, stitched together with new speculation, reframed with darker intentions. Emotions ran high as people realized the internet never truly forgets, it only waits. Jasmine tried to ignore it. She told herself she was done explaining, done defending, done bleeding publicly. But every rumor felt like a hand pulling her back into a version of herself she was trying to leave behind. Friends noticed she grew distant again, guarded. Healing, it turned out, wasn't linear. The family was left divided in quieter ways now, with some urging her to speak up and others begging her to stay silent. Then a blog published an anonymous, inside source piece. It claimed Jasmine had considered appealing the court decision at one point, not to win, but to clear her name emotionally. Fans were shocked by the suggestion. Emotions ran high as debates flared again. Was it bravery or obsession? Growth or refusal to accept reality? Jasmine denied the report, but the seed had been planted. Kirk heard about it through friends before he ever saw it online. For a moment, old tension returned. Not anger, but fatigue. He had rebuilt a fragile sense of normalcy, and the thought of being dragged back into headlines made his chest tighten. The family was left divided behind closed doors, with some saying he should get ahead of it and others saying any response would only keep the fire alive. He chose silence again. That silence frustrated people. Fans were shocked by how much they still wanted him to say something, anything. Emotions ran high as silence became interpreted as power, then arrogance, then strategy, depending on who was speaking. Kirk accepted that no version of himself would ever satisfy everyone. Jasmine, meanwhile, made a different move. Not public, not dramatic, personal. She reached out to someone she had avoided since the case ended. Someone who had been in the middle of everything and walked away quietly. The conversation was awkward, honest, painful. Jasmine admitted she didn't always know where truth ended and survival began during that period of her life. Emotions ran high, but for once, there were no cameras, no fans, no judgment. That conversation changed her. Slowly, her tone shifted. Not online, but internally. She stopped seeing the story as something she needed to win. She began seeing it as something that happened, something that scarred her but didn't have to define her forever. The family was left divided still, but Jasmine was less concerned with choosing sides. Then came another unexpected moment. A fan met Jasmine in public and asked her, gently, if she regretted it. Not the case. Not the documentary. But the way everything exploded. Jasmine paused for a long time before answering. Then she said yes. Not because she lied, but because she learned too late that pain spoken in anger turns into a weapon others will use against you. Fans were shocked when that quote went viral, not because it was dramatic, but because it was quiet and reflective. Emotions ran high in a different way this time. Kirk saw the quote. He didn't comment publicly, but those close to him said it mattered. Months later, without announcement, Jasmine removed several old posts. Not all, just the ones that no longer felt like her voice. Fans noticed immediately. Speculation sparked again, but this time it burned out quickly. The family was left divided but tired. Outrage had lost its flavor. Then, one final rumor surfaced. Someone claimed Kirk and Jasmine had met privately again, not to reconcile but to close a chapter properly. Both denied it, both also refused to elaborate. Fans were shocked by the mystery, but there was no explosion this time. Just curiosity, then acceptance. Eventually, newer scandals replaced their story in headlines. Newer faces, louder chaos. But their case lingered as a reference point, a cautionary tale people brought up when discussing power, narrative, and emotion in the public eye. Emotions ran high whenever it was mentioned, but less violently now, more thoughtfully. Jasmine focused on rebuilding an identity that wasn't reactive. She pursued work that didn't rely on controversy. Some efforts succeeded, some failed, but they were hers. The family was left divided in memory, not motion. Kirk leaned further into privacy. Not because he was hiding, but because he had learned the cost of visibility. He became more intentional, more selective. Those around him noticed he no longer needed to be right publicly. Being at peace mattered more. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the story stopped being active. No new evidence, no new statements, no new fights. Just two lives continuing forward with marks they would always carry. Fans are still shocked, not by how explosive it all was, but by how ordinary the ending became. No final confession, no dramatic apology, no viral reconciliation, just distance, reflection, and time. The family was left divided, yes, but also wiser. And the shocking truth everyone chased so desperately turned out not to be a single revelation in a courtroom, but the uncomfortable reality that truth is rarely clean, rarely complete, and never comes without consequence. That realization lingered long after the noise faded, reminding everyone watching that sometimes the loudest endings aren't justice, they're just damage, and the quiet ones are where people finally start to live again. Long after the headlines faded, the weight of everything still lingered in quiet ways. Jasmine would sometimes wake up convinced her phone was buzzing, heart racing, only to realize it was silent. No notifications, no tags, no outrage. That silence felt strange, almost uncomfortable. For so long, chaos had been her normal. Now she had space, and she didn't know what to do with it. She started writing, not for cameras, not for release, but for herself. Pages filled with thoughts she never said out loud. Anger she no longer wanted to perform. Regret she finally allowed herself to feel without turning it into a weapon. Emotions ran high in private now, not public, and that made all the difference. The family was left divided in memory, but Jasmine stopped needing their validation. Kirk, in his own world, felt something similar. He had won in court, but victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. Some nights he replayed moments in his head, wondering where things could have gone differently. Not to rewrite the outcome, but to understand it. Fans were shocked when someone close to him revealed that the case changed how he handled conflict entirely. He no longer avoided it, but he no longer fed it either. Occasionally, someone would bring Jasmine up in conversation. Kirk's response never changed. He would pause, then say he hoped she was doing well. No bitterness, no defensiveness. That consistency confused people more than anger ever could. Emotions ran high among those who wanted a villain, someone loud enough to blame. Jasmine noticed that too. She noticed how the world wanted her either broken or burning. There was little space for quiet growth. When she didn't give interviews, people assumed she was hiding. When she spoke calmly, they assumed strategy. Fans were shocked by how unwilling the public was to let her just exist. The family was left divided in opinion, but Jasmine slowly learned that division wasn't her responsibility to fix. One evening, months after everything had supposedly ended, Jasmine was invited to speak privately to a small group of women. No press, no live stream. She almost declined, afraid of reopening wounds. But something told her to go. She spoke honestly. She talked about how pain can turn into performance when you feel unheard. How validation from strangers feels powerful until it owns you. How truth doesn't always save you if it's wrapped in rage. Emotions ran high in that room, not because of drama, but because of recognition. For the first time, Jasmine didn't feel judged or defended. She felt understood. Word of that talk spread quietly. Fans were shocked not by what she said, but by what she didn't. No names, no accusations, no blame, just reflection. The family was left divided still, but the noise around her softened. Kirk heard about the talk too. Someone asked him if it changed how he saw her. He said it didn't need to. He said people aren't frozen in their worst moments, even when the internet tries to keep them there. Emotions ran high when that quote circulated, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt earned. Time continued doing what courts and documentaries couldn't. It dulled edges. It softened certainties. It reminded everyone that no case, no matter how public, captures a full human story. Jasmine stopped being introduced by controversy and started being introduced by her work again. Slowly, unevenly, Not without skepticism, but real. The family was left divided in reputation, but Jasmine stopped chasing universal approval. Kirk rebuilt trust where it mattered most to him. Not online, but at home. With people who knew him beyond headlines. Fans were shocked by how little he needed the public's forgiveness once he made peace with himself. Years later, someone would bring up the case in a podcast, framing it as a lesson about power and narrative. Commenters would argue. Sides would reform briefly. Emotions ran high in familiar ways. But Jasmine didn't respond. Kirk didn't respond. And that, more than anything else, marked the real ending. The story no longer belonged to the crowd. It belonged to the past. What remained wasn't scandal or victory, but consequence and growth, uneven and imperfect. The family was left divided in history, but not in the present. And for those who had watched every moment unfold, fans are still shocked not by what was revealed in court, but by what time revealed afterward. That sometimes the most crushing truth isn't spoken under oath. It's learned slowly, quietly, when the cameras are gone and there's finally no one left to perform for. Even after all that time, echoes of the case still surfaced in unexpected places. A clip here, a quote there, a passing joke on a podcast. Every time it happened, it reminded people how deeply the story had lodged itself into public memory. Fans were shocked by how something so personal had become a reference point for so many unrelated conversations. Emotions ran high not because of fresh conflict, but because the residue of it all still lingered. Jasmine noticed it most when strangers thought they knew her. They would approach cautiously, some apologetic, some curious, some accusatory without meaning to be. She learned to listen without absorbing, to separate who she was from who people believed she had been. It wasn't easy. Some days it felt like walking through fog, never sure when the past would suddenly materialize in front of her. The family was left divided in memory, but Jasmine learned to stop reopening old fractures just to prove she had healed. She started mentoring younger women quietly, sharing lessons she once learned the hard way. She talked about boundaries, about choosing peace over being right, about how public validation can feel like oxygen until you realize it's also a fire. Emotions ran high in those conversations, but they stayed contained, purposeful. No one filmed, no one leaked. That privacy felt revolutionary. Kirk, on his side, found himself becoming more reflective too. Not publicly, but in conversations with people he trusted. He admitted there were moments he wished he had handled differently, not because the court was wrong, but because pain doesn't disappear just because it's disproven. Fans were shocked when someone close to him shared that Kirk believed winning the case forced him to confront how power and silence can shape outcomes just as much as truth. Sometimes, late at night, Kirk would scroll through old articles and stop himself. He didn't need to reread them. He already knew how they ended. What mattered now was how he lived afterward. The family was left divided in narrative, but Kirk focused on accountability where it actually changed something. The world, meanwhile, kept moving. New scandals replaced old ones. Louder, messier, faster. People who once argued fiercely over Kirk and Jasmine now argued about someone else. Emotions ran high elsewhere, redirected. Fans were shocked by how quickly outrage migrated, leaving behind quiet aftermaths no one wanted to clean up. But some people remembered. They remembered how quickly they chose sides. How confidently they spoke without knowing everything. How easily they consumed pain when it entertained them. A few even admitted it publicly, saying the case made them rethink how they engage with personal drama online. The family was left divided in opinion still, but growth appeared in unexpected corners. Years later, Jasmine was asked in an interview about the biggest lesson she learned, with strict rules that the past case could only be mentioned indirectly. She paused, then said she learned that telling your story doesn't mean everyone will hear it the way you intend. She said sometimes the bravest thing isn't speaking louder, but learning when silence protects you. Fans were shocked by how grounded she sounded, not rehearsed, not defensive. Kirk was asked something similar at a separate event. His answer mirrored hers in an almost eerie way. He said the hardest lesson was accepting that even truth has consequences, and not all of them feel fair. Emotions ran high among those who noticed the parallel, reading meaning into it, wondering if it hinted at shared understanding or simply shared scars. There was no reunion, no joint interview, no public closure, and slowly, people stopped expecting one. The story settled into something quieter, less dramatic, but more honest. It became a reminder more than a spectacle. A cautionary tale whispered instead of shouted. The family was left divided in history books of the internet, but no longer actively at war. Jasmine found joy again in small, unremarkable moments. Mornings without anxiety, laughter without fear of misinterpretation, work that didn't depend on outrage to survive. Emotions ran high sometimes, but they passed without needing an audience. Kirk found stability in routine, in consistency, in choosing when to speak and when to let moments pass without reaction. Fans were shocked by how ordinary his life looked afterward, as if the storm had never happened. But those close to him knew better. Storms change landscapes even after skies clear. Occasionally, their names would appear in the same sentence again, usually by someone new discovering the story for the first time. A fresh wave of opinions would ripple briefly. then fade. The family was left divided for a moment, then quiet again. And that was how it stayed. Not resolved in the way stories usually are. Not tied up with apologies or forgiveness arcs. But lived through, endured, and eventually absorbed into who they became. Fans are still shocked when they realize the most dramatic part of the entire saga wasn't the courtroom, the documentary, or the verdict. It was the aftermath. The long, unglamorous process of moving forward without applause, without certainty, and without rewriting the past to feel better about it. In the end, the truth didn't crush anyone all at once. It pressed slowly, steadily, until everyone involved had no choice but to stand differently under its weight. After everything you've just heard, one question still hangs in the air. Who do you really believe, and does the truth ever come without collateral damage? This story wasn't just about a courtroom win or a public loss. It was about power, perception, and how fast emotions can turn into weapons when the whole world is watching. Even now, fans are shocked by how deeply this saga cut, and how no verdict could fully close the chapter. Now it's your turn. Do you think Kirk truly crushed Jasmine with facts, or did the court only tell part of the story? Was Jasmine wrong, misunderstood, or simply pushed past her breaking point? And most importantly, did anyone actually win in the end? The family was left divided, the internet picked sides, but your perspective matters just as much. If this story kept you hooked, if the twist surprised you, and if you're still thinking about what really happened behind closed doors, make sure you show your support. Hit the like button to let us know you want more stories like this. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next shocking breakdown, because you already know the drama never really ends. And don't stay silent in the comments. Drop your thoughts below, because this is where the real conversation happens. Tell us which moment shocked you the most. Tell us whose side you were on at the beginning, and whether that changed by the end. Or tell us if you think the truth is somewhere in the middle, buried under emotion, ego, and public pressure. Stay tuned, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the loudest stories aren't the ones with the biggest explosions, but the ones that leave you questioning everything long after the screen goes dark.